Broncos boxing on this episode of the Broncos Breakdown presented by Prize Picks. Welcome into the show. My name is Moose. Thanks for hanging out with me today. I do kid when I talk about the boxing, but there was a fight at Broncos practice today. Now, this isn't necessarily newsworthy, but I do believe it shows something about the Broncos that maybe last year they lacked a little bit. That fire, that energy, that kind of resilience and just overall grit to the team. Not to say that they weren't gritty last year, but this team feels like they've got something to prove. So I went to X and I broke it down and I said, hey, I love it. It fires me, pardon my French here, the fuck up. As long as Bo and the rest of the team are safe, I have no problem with this kind of fire. And I'll explain what I mean coming up here in just a moment. Before I do, though, you saw my X page right there. One of the things the bosses came to me this offseason, they said was, you've got to grow your social media presence. You're doing a great job on YouTube, to which I said, thank you. But you got to do a better job of getting everything out on your socials. So, Moose_NFL on X and on Twitter, whatever you want to call it. And then, of course, same handle, same everything over there on Insta. Give me a follow. I would greatly appreciate it. So, I don't like the defense hitting Bo. I don't know why we're hitting our QB1 or any of our quarterbacks during practice, right? That's why you wear a different colored jersey, because the quarterback is, no, off limits. Don't touch them. But mistakes happen, plays happen where you can't really prevent it, especially if you've got a 295-pound human being barreling at you. And it does kind of sound like that's where some of this stems from. Maybe not necessarily originally from today. Like, the first real scrum that happened was between Justin Joly. And then a couple of plays later, Bo Nix gets involved. Apparently, Nick Bonito, Malcolm Roach collapsed the pocket. They end up sacking Bo Nix. He got up. He was pissed, threw a ball, and then a scrum started. In fact, this was kind of like the most heated anybody has seen Bo or any of the Broncos in the Sean Payton era. I think that's a good thing. Not, again, that you're hitting Bo Nix, but very good in the sense of, like, we're seeing something from this team. There's grit. There's tenacity to this team. And Bo loves it. If you think for a second that Bo Nix was like, yeah, shame on us. No, he loved it. He said, I love it. I love football. It is football. It's getting me ready for the games coming up. He's talking about the hits, but the fiery spirit, the mentality that the Broncos team is going into week one with. I think this team's got a little more edge to it this year than it did last. And again, I'm not saying that they didn't have any edge last year. A defensive-led team naturally has edge and grit. But this year, it feels like they're really out to prove something. And that is, this is not a fluke. This team is that good. Now, we're going to take a break from the fighting stuff because really that's about it. And again, there's not much to report there. Fights happen. Grown men get, into a violent sport and suddenly people are angry. It happens all the time. Let's talk about some more practice news that we saw today. Still on the defensive side of the ball, this defense is getting better by the day. Alex Singleton balled out. It's really the first time that we've talked about the veteran balling out this much at a practice. And then flipping the script over to a rookie, Red Murdock, drawing some very high praise by his defensive coordinator. And speaking of, he dropped a Barron bomb. Vance Joseph kind of letting something slip a little bit. So that's what we're actually going to start with. Jahdae Barron. Yes, he had a great game against the Atlanta Falcons. Vance Joseph dropped a nice little news nugget for us. Here's what he said at his press conference. He said he plays multiple spots for us, and that's going to be valuable. He's at the nickel. Yeah, we knew that. He's at the dime. Yep, we knew that. He's sometimes at safety. Last year when Pat was out for those 3 games, he played corner. That's his role right now. He wants more, and I want more for him. So he does play safety for us. We were told specifically by Sean Payton he wasn't getting reps there. He was adamant about it, actually, in the first few practices of training camp. So we are led to believe now that Jahdae Barron is maybe a safety kind of, what's the word I'm looking for here? It's kind of like a break emergency. I don't know why that was so hard for me. An emergency safety. This is good news. It's huge that he can fill out that safety spot. Because one of the things that I've been saying is that safety role, that safety 3 and 4, those are kind of wide open. I know Devin Key is unbelievable, but he's more of a amazing special teamer, right? First team all-pro special teams player. And you're not going to be taking anything away from Talanoa Hufanga or Brandon Jones. And I thought J.L. Skinner played very well against the Falcons. But outside of that, there wasn't much to write home about. And we know the Broncos last year kept 4 safeties. So let's say it's Hufanga, Jones, Skinner, and Key this year. Well, in the event that Jones or Huff goes down, we could be seeing Jahdae Barron slide into a coverage role. Does this make sense? So while J.L. Skinner, yes, he played well, I would still probably rather have Jahdae Barron play that emergency safety role. All right, I've got way more coming up, including more Red Murdock talk and with some Alex Singleton and Torian York talk as well. Before I do, though, got to remind you guys, today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Prize Picks. Love Prize Picks. Play it every single day. Don't win every single day. But you know what? I can win up to 2,000 times my cash while watching football, which is right around the corner. Less than 4 weeks away from Broncos kickoff against the Chiefs. So what you got to do is download the Prize Picks app today. Sign up with code HMA. Play your first $5 lineup and get $150 in bonus lineups if that lineup ends up hitting. I got one. Boom. Take a look at it. Bo Nix, I've showed this to you guys a million times. Here's 1,000,001. Bo Nix, the more on the passing yards. Taking the more because he will hit it. Jalen Waddle, the more on the receiving yards. 850 is criminal for a player that I think is going to surpass 1,200 yards. And then, of course, it can't be all Broncos. You got to combo that with another player. So I went Bijan. I think Bijan's going to have another MVP-type year. Do me a favor. Download the Prize Picks app today. Sign up with code HMA. Play your first $5 lineup. Get $150 in bonus lineups if that lineup ends up hitting. All of that in the comments and description of today's video. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. So Jahdae Barron, remember, had a great game against the Atlanta Falcons. His overall PFF grade, 65.4, coverage grade of 63.0, and a tackle grade of 77.8. He's always been a great closeout player, always been a great tackler, very physical in his nickel corner spot. But we can probably expect some safety reps against Green Bay, right? Like maybe it's only 2 or 3, but I would really like to see him. If Vance is already telling us that, yes, he's going to be at safety for us sometimes, I would like to see him at safety. Doesn't have to be a lot, because I don't think that's where they want him primarily. So we'll leave it at that. Let's shift over to Red Murdock really quick. I know I talked about a little bit of Singleton, but we're going to kind of go from down up from that little list that we had. Murdock played great against the Falcons. In fact, I thought, personally, was one of the best rookies out on the field. I really did. I thought he and Jonah Coleman were by far 1 and 2 against the Falcons. And fun fact, he called plays. He was the green dot out on the field for Vance Joseph. And Vance said he did a great job of calling plays. This is fantastic news if you're a Red Murdock fan. Here's one thing that I saw from Red Murdock, and I'll kind of rehash some of my old talking points. He looks gigantic. His frame is so wide and so athletic looking, and he closes out a lot faster than I thought. I wouldn't say that he's an athletic freak or an athletic specimen. He's going to win with his angles, his mind, and honestly, his physicality. Because the one thing he does bring to the table is an unbelievable ability to pry the ball loose. And every hit, he's looking to knock the ball out. That's something you saw. A lot bigger than you anticipate, knocking the football out, or at least trying to on every play. And that closeout speed is a lot better than I give him credit for. Here's the play that I'm talking about when it comes to his closeout speed. He's out in the seam. Ball is caught in the flat. I believe this is by a Falcons running back, maybe Tyler Goodson. And Red closes the gap, shrinks it. And look at that. He winds up with that right arm to just punch through. Not a fumble here, but he certainly made the tackle and kind of stopped that play where in its tracks. And 8 tackles, only 1 assisted tackle, so 7 solo ones. He's great in open space. Had an 81.5 tackle grade and a 69.4 PFF grade in total. Here's the most impressive part. 0 missed tackles against the Falcons on Friday night. Meaning what? When Red Murdock makes contact, you're not going anywhere. That's old school. That's Ray Lewis, right? Those are the, I'm going to meet you in the gap, and I'm just going to crush you, and you're not going to get away from me. But he's not the only linebacker that impressed today. Alex Singleton also played very well. And it's good to see that the guy that is going to end up starting above Red Murdock in this role is also playing very well. Apparently, he went nuts today along with the defense. And the more and more I see this defense, the more and more I think that this team actually has a legitimate chance to be the greatest Broncos defense of all time. It'd be very difficult to surpass what happened in 2016. I'm fully aware of that. But if there is a team that has a shot to do it, it's this one. So some notes from Alex Singleton, despite the one thing you saw there from Zach Stevens. An INT, he picked off Bo today, which is great. You know, it's great to see that his pass coverage skills can still hold up a little. And then on 9-on-7s, he had a nice tackle for loss. So all great things here from Alex Singleton. But again, the linebacker position seems to be something that is kind of really making a push forward in a great capacity because Torian York also had a great day today. More on him here in just a moment. Before I get to him, I do have to remind you guys that our second sponsor of today's video, to keep the lights on, is our friends at SeatGeek. You know, I went to that concert with my wife. It was Akon and Neo. And despite her pregnancy, we certainly had ourselves a fun time, even in the Texas heat. And I got my tickets over on SeatGeek. So what you got to do is if you want your next set of tickets for a Denver Broncos game, that's right, your next set of tickets for a Denver Broncos game is on SeatGeek. You got to download it. Use code CHAT10 for 10% off your next set of tickets. They make it super user-friendly. Rate their tickets on a scale of 1 to 10 so you know you're getting a good deal. Look for the green dots. Green means good. Yellow means eh. And then red means don't look at those, okay? Green always, all the time. Do Moose a favor. Download the SeatGeek app right now. Head over to SeatGeek. Use code CHAT10 for 10% off your next Denver Broncos set of tickets. All of that in the comments and description of today's video. Thank you to our friends at SeatGeek. Inside linebacker is so huge for Denver this year. And I'm really happy to see that the strides are being made by these Broncos linebackers because in the early days of training camp this year, it was kind of a more quiet position. I wouldn't say they were bad because they weren't, but it just wasn't something that popped. You saw a lot of pop from the defensive line. You saw a lot of pop from Riley Moss and now Jahdae Barron, and Pat Surtain is great. So the secondary looks fantastic. The pass rush is always good, but the linebackers, kind of more quiet. And look, I'm not saying by any means it's a bad room, but compared to the other rooms on the Broncos defense, it is the weakest link by far. You know, I mean, Singleton and Stranad are good players, but you've got all pros all over the place everywhere else. And there's no all pro on this, well, at least not yet, in this inside linebacker room. Now, that's not to say that players aren't balling out. Because, like I told you, Murdock's impressing, Singleton had a great day, and now Torian York, UDFA out of Texas A&M. Drilled Justin Joly over the middle of the field. This was after Joly started a scrum. Remember, I talked about that earlier in the episode. And then Torian York took that to heart, and he said, I took that personally to put on his MJ shoes and just popped Justin Joly over the middle. And it's not just this one play. Torian York certainly has found a little bit more physical of his play than I even originally gave him credit for. Because we already know that he's great against the pass. He's great in coverage. But they blitzed him a lot against the Falcons. They were just over again, sending him to the crib. And one play that really stood out to me was in the red zone. Torian York creeps up. He's playing in that kind of like base defense. He kind of like creeps up and just splits the gap immediately on a handoff, and he's the first person in the backfield to make contact with Tyler Goodson. And this is a loss of about 2. Excellent play here from Torian York. So I think this inside linebacker 3, inside linebacker 4 situation, it's going to be a lot of fun to play out. They're also battling Corene Reed, who forced a pick against the Falcons. So there's a lot of players here gunning for that position. Right now, I'd give it to Murdock and I'd give it to York with a special nod to Corene Reed, but we'll have to wait and see how it plays out. Either way, if you want to find me anywhere, more unfiltered Denver Broncos content, you know where to go. Moose_NFL. And then Insta, same thing. All that in the comments of today's video and the description, if you will. That's where I'm going to leave it, Broncos country. I will see you guys tomorrow. Have a great evening. Mile high salute. Be cool.